Hello all of you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com. Yes, you've read the title. Yes, it is time for another not list, aka an episode of These Things Suck. I know I took a bit of a break from the format, but now I am back to shorten my lifespan even more as me and my neck vein Jeremy take a whistle-stop tour around the film industry and just find things that pull our back hairs out one by one. And trust me, he's got a lot of them. Not so much me. Smooth. Very, very smooth. I'm not at all. And make videos about them for your entertainment. And today, we're talking about director's cuts that absolutely suck. Now, this is the thing. When it came to the recent Snyder cut of the Justice League, shock horror, to many, apparently letting a director actually make their own vision can sometimes be a good idea. Game-changing, I know. Yet you'd be surprised at just how many times directors have their visions for the silver screen utterly blinkered by studios and excessive cuts and mandates from executives, which can leave even thoroughbred ideas destined for the bloody glue factory. Now, to be fair to both parties of this outrageous horse metaphor, sometimes studios have to intervene for the sake of all involved, as those at the helm can sometimes start steering the ship towards jagged rocks that are marked with such horrors as "it's gonna be 4 hours long" or "I've blown all of the budget on my lead's cocaine habit," and thus make what they deem to be necessary cuts. But thankfully, we do get the cases where directors are allowed to make their full version through the medium of director's cuts, and for the most part, they're absolutely brilliant. But this is not that not list, because today we're talking about director's cuts that absolutely, positively suck. So, I think without question that The French Connection is one of the greatest crime capers ever. It is gritty, it is visceral, and it absolutely delivers on the car chase sequences, especially so when you learn that these were shot without permission on real roads. That is really dangerous, but it looks very cool. It's one of those films that is both the product of its time and yet in many ways has stood the test of it. Therefore, it was actually quite crazy to see that it was getting a director's cut release in 2009, decades after the film hit cinema. Touting a new and supposedly colder look that was achieved through intensive color grade, fans were excited to see what director William Friedkin would deliver. However, this was less of a wild ride and more of a screeching halt courtesy of a dumpster, as this edition was ugly. The colour grade that the director had insisted on was an utter mess, producing high contrast and almost pastel-like smeared visuals. Fans and critics were reviled at how distracting this colour grade was, and for many, this was completely unwatchable. It was bad enough that cinematographer Owen Roizman spoke out about the project with disgust, calling the 2009 release atrocious. And you know what? It's hard to argue with him. Well, it was, unless you were the director who actively spoke out about it, said that he'd done nothing wrong on his end and that it was the fault of the disc the edition was recorded to. Claiming that the master was perfect, but the transition to disc messed the whole thing up, Friedkin seemed to put out post after post about how it was quite simply not his problem. Except it most definitely was, because it had his name on it, he was put in charge of it, and there probably should have been some product testing before it went out. So yeah, at your doorstep, pal. Things got so bad with the response to the 2009 Wreckfest that a second director's cut that contained the tag that it came from both Friedkin and Roizman had to be released in order to appease the torched fanbase. So yeah, so bad it had to be kind of removed from existence. Noish. Now, as I have made clear several times in my tenure here at What Culture, I love the Warriors. I love the Warriors. Please, somebody take that soundbite and play it back anytime that somebody says, "Do you think that Jules from What Culture likes the film The Warriors?" I love the Warriors. The style, the over-the-top presentation, and the grimy and gritty nature of the setting make this an experience akin to watching a seething mass of resentment and anger take physical form. And all of this was wrapped up in a beautifully simple message: get home without getting your head kicked in. Can we dig it? Yes! However, the only digging the ultimate director's cut for the Warriors was doing was its own grave. As if we're being brutally honest, this was a soulless cash grab that added almost nothing to the film's legacy. Now, with the title Ultimate Director's Cut, you'd expect quite a lot of features and content to be added back in. Pretty much every single moment of film that was not used would be put back in this thing because of Ultimate Director's Cut. Yet what do we get? 76 seconds worth of extra footage. Wicked. That's right, all of the changes here amount to 1.5 minutes of extras. Cool, off to a great start. But you know what? Maybe I'm being too rash. It's the quality of the changes over the quantity, right? Well, I hate to disappoint you, friend, but most of these changes are extended establishing shots, a brand new intro that was not needed in the slightest, and a slew of comic book style transitions that have been added to the film for no reason whatsoever. Oh, sorry, actually there was a reason, and that reason was money. I say this because, wouldn't you know it, the Warriors also had a new comic line release in 2009 just ahead of this 2010 director's cut. There's your link. There's the reason that you have to put up with out-of-place transitions because a comic book also exists. Plus that intro with the direct ties to Greek legend in order to make the journey we're about to see feel more epic. I mean, talk about hitting people over the head with your one-and-done story beat. We get it. They're fighters. They want to go home. I got that from the rest of the movie. How can so few tiny changes make such a big impact on the overall viewing experience? The answer is Ultimate Director's Cut. Oh, George Lucas. George Lucas. Big Georgie boy. Lukey Lou. Gonna have to talk about you now, aren't we? Aren't we, you little scamp? Taking a mantra of don't fix what ain't broke and attempting to fix the expression itself, Lucas brings his homemade, overbaked, I fixed it until it broke mentality to the beloved Star Wars franchise again and again, with even louder pleas from the fan base for him to just stop. Please just stop. These enhanced editions of the original trilogy sought to trade on the very thing that Star Wars became famous for, namely the incredible visual effects and the pungently memorable characters. I wrote pungent in there and I was just like, yeah, I don't use that word enough. Pungently memorable. Nice, happy with that. However, instead of tweaking lighting effects or adding in subtle changes here and there, Lucas decided to showcase the newest tech front and center to the detriment of his own movie. Now, I think that we can all agree that the scenes like the dancing before the Rancor scene and the Mos Eisley establishing shots are ruined by the overabundance of new plasticky looking CGI creatures that have been added in. Mos Eisley, lest we not forget, is a hive of scum and villainy, and its desolated and dour appearance in the original kind of reflects that mentality. But in the enhanced versions, we get to see a scene that looks right out of fucking Fraggle Rock, complete with slapstick moments and creatures that literally exist to give the overworked Wikipedia scribes even more entries to fill out. Right, okay, George, so, what's it called again? A crimble? A what? A flemblem? Surely just one sentence then to say what it is. Why? No. Why has it got a 3-book backstory? What are you doing? It did not tie itself in to the Rebel Alliance. It wasn't the savior. George. I'm typing, but I'm not happy. And the dance scene is the true pit by comparison, however, as here not only does the singer duo get right up uncomfortably close to the camera, we can even see what one of them had for bloody dinner last night as we stare down his gullet, making for a moment where George Lucas really wants to show off the advancements in CGI at the time. But you know where this is all headed. You know that while I complain about Mos Eisley and this dance before Rancor scene, that the real villain of the piece is the Han shoots first moment. What is going on here? Because here, now Greedo is edited to shoot Han first, thus giving him the impetus to shoot back in retaliation. Now, the thinking behind this was that it places Han in a more heroic light. However, that is entirely against the rogue smuggler character that he's actually portraying. The shot, in every sense, was better with Han firing first and asking questions never, as that was both a believable moment and an establishing worry in the minds of the audience as to whether this man could be actually trusted at all. It's subtle, despite its loud and very violent delivery, but in the enhanced version, it's actually kind of dumb luck that Han survives at all and thus weakens his immediate impact. Now, the fanbase has been incredibly vocal over their dislike for the enhanced editions, but maybe, you know what, deep down this is actually a moment of long-term marketing genius, as maybe his repeated fudging of his own projects was Lucas's attempt to keep both the Star Wars name in the mouth and minds of many, but also to get fans to champion the theatrical releases as true masterclass moments of cinema, which when you combine with their scarcity turns them into this kind of holy grail within the Star Wars community. They'll buy the enhanced editions because of all the extras, but then they'll go back and say, well, I better pay over the odds for these super rare theatrical versions that are in such limited quantity, thus creating a cycle of hype again and again and again. And George Lucas, he just sits back. Well, he used to. Disney now sits back and just goes, meh, like the little bloody, Feculus Crumb. I can't remember what his real name is. He's the tiny little thing that sits next to Jabba. It should be Feculus Crumb, because he is a bit of a fecker. It's Salacious Crumb. I've just remembered that now. Salacious B. Crumb. Thank you, Wikipedia. That's proving my point. It's just him sitting on the side just going, thanks for the money, you chumps. Right, okay, so I've done talking about George Lucas. It's now time to talk about Steven Spielberg, influenced by George Lucas. Cool! So as we all know, there was a time when legendary director Steven Spielberg palled around with equally famous directing legend George Lucas as something of a Hollywood power couple. They would consult each other on projects that they were working on and share ideas and feedback with each other on the regular. However, it seemed as if Lucas, for all of the good advice that he likely gave, placed one stinky kernel into the mind soil of Spielberg when it came to making alterations to classic film properties, which led to the utterly ridiculous curio known as the director's cut of E.T., which became something of a purity project for Spielberg as he looked to remove all threatening imagery from his iconic film. And by this, I mean that he replaces all of the guns that the CIA agents or government agents in this film with walkie-talkies. Now, I'm all for gun control, but I would like to think that should an alien menace actually become a threat to humanity, that our special ops forces would be slightly more effective than a community support officer. I don't know, call me weird, but I just think that maybe a xenomorph wouldn't stop its bloody rampage if somebody was waving a Nokia 3310 in its face. It creates a hyper-sanitized look that removes a significant amount of tension from the film, and while pointing guns at kids is never going to be a good thing in real life, within the context of this film, it creates the necessary drama to sell how desperate the situation is. It is a shame that this is the hill that Steven Spielberg decided to phone home from, because if we're being honest, there are changes that should have been made within this film in the director's cut, and that was basically just any chance you possibly could to make E.T. look less like a ball bag that's been covered in fake tanning cream. Seriously, it is disgusting. I know I'm in the minority. I just don't like the way it looks. It's just, ooh, gross, ooh. Right, okay, so there we go. We're completely done now. We're out of director's cuts. That's been the end of the... What do you want?
Aren't you forgetting something, Jules?
Oh, man, I don't want to talk about Apocalypse Now Redux.
Well, why not?
You know why I don't want to talk about it?
Why not? What's it done to hurt you? Come on, it's okay, you can tell me. You can tell grumpy Uncle Joe.
I don't want to talk about it because they added an extra 40 fucking minutes into this film, and none of it is good. None of it is useful to the film's understanding at all. It's just kind of like, I had extra footage. I plugged in my phone to my laptop one time and found a folder that I hadn't used from the film, and I just went, drag, drop, done.
Now that you put it that way, it's gonna be fucking dog shit, innit?
Joe, it makes me want to just be like, this is the end. It's not even the end though, because there's another 30 fucking minutes to go. We're done with this. No, director's cut, I'm cutting this bit out. And there we go, my friends. Those were These Director's Cuts Suck. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below, as well as any other examples of this that I may have missed out, because I'm sure there are many, many more. But I love reading all of your fizzy comments anyway, so it's always quite fun to do that. But if you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my Warhammer gaming and streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Even though when I'm doing these videos, I'm over the top, a bit hyperbolic when it comes to my anger levels, that's not something that I want to carry forward into my real life, and I urge you not to do the same either. If you have the capacity to forgive those that have angered you in the past, that have made mistakes against you, then I really urge you to try and let go of that anger. It's not a pleasant emotion to carry around. I want you to go and live a healthy and happy life, to build bridges instead of burning them, all right? So go out there with love in your heart for yourself and your neighbour. Big love to you as well, my friend. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Peace.